Today we're going to be looking at site executes with Omen on Haven. Omen's abilities work really well together to allow him to play aggressively as your team push the site. Use your smokes to block commonly held lines of sight, your teleports to get past enemy defences, and your blind to clear enemies out of dangerous positions or cover the sound of your teleport. As Omen, it's important to mix up your executes, as if the defenders can predict your plays, you're easily countered. Ideally, you want to set up default plays on each site, which the enemies will think that they can predict, but then once you mix it up every so often with a fake teleport or a different combo, you'll be able to catch them off guard. An important thing to remember is that if you're your team's only smoker, it's much more important to set your team up for a successful push rather than set yourself up for a risky teleport play. First, for the A site, we're looking at a push from sewers into the site. By using these two smokes, you allow your team entry into the site to the default plant spot, and someone can be covering them from in sewers. If your team is also pushing from A long, these smokes aren't as effective as they don't block the sightline from window to A long. Whilst these smokes help Omen's teammates push, they also enable Omen to use his teleports to get to the back of the site. The first teleport onto the boxes is pretty telegraphed, as players now expect Omens to teleport into their smokes. But from this position you have a couple of options. First is to come to the left side and teleport onto the boxes at the back of site. From here you can hold any defensive rotations from A link, or clear anyone out from the corner by sewers. If these areas are clear, the sound of you jumping off the box should be masked by your teammates on site, or assumed to be a defensive player rotating into site to help. Your second option from on top of the box is to teleport straight into the window. By jumping whilst teleporting, you can get right to the back of the window, meaning you won't get caught on the window ledge by anyone playing within sight, and you also have the chance of being behind anyone playing close to the window. From this position, you can again take out anyone playing behind the boxes in sight, or rotate down the stairs and hold the defender spawn in A link. This will cut off any support for any defenders on site. The next execute is good if the defensive team don't tend to have anyone in window, or if you have a second smoke player. Omen smokes are wider than brims. This means that they're much easier to lay down in these positions with no gaps to either side. These smokes isolate the front of site for your team, as well as cause the defensive players to hold their position in the back of site and watch for aggressive pushes through the smoke. To capitalise this as Omen, you can teleport to hell over the centre box, where you'll be behind any defenders playing in sight. This teleport also lets you peek the entrance to A link from an unexpected angle, as any defenders watching this sightline will not have seen you cross over to hell. I've also added a few essential teleports you need to know for each site. If you time this teleport correctly, you can easily get behind any defenders pushing into the site to defuse the spike. By teleporting onto this box, you can hold an unexpected angle for any defenders pushing into site from A link. Just be careful of anyone playing in window. If you are using this spot, it's best to have it smoked off. Finally, this teleport can be used to catch any defenders holding the angle into A lobby at the start of the round. By popping out the opposite side to what they expect, you should be able to easily eliminate them. Try and use these teleports sparingly though, as the more you use them, the more likely a defender will be able to predict your play. Next is B site. First we're going to be looking at a quick and safe way to plant on the site using as little utility as possible. By smoking off this gap, you can safely teleport into the corner of the box. This is a decent place to plant the bomb and allows your team to cover you as you plant without having to enter the site. Once the spike is planted, you can either teleport out of sight or use this falling smoke to cover you as you teleport on top of the boxes. Once the smoke lands, you have a sightline into A link, and the smokes make it much harder for the defenders to push through the front of sight even if you die. It's important to be able to vary this play up, as if it's predictable it's much easier to counter. By using the same smoke and teleport setup, you can bait a defender to push through the smoke to stop the plant. Whilst they're doing this, you can teleport past them into C link to easily eliminate them from behind. There is some risk in case you get caught by defenders rotating from garage or C site, but if you can time it right, you'll be able to catch the B player off guard. I wouldn't recommend taking the bomb with you if you try this though. Onto the teleport section. The first is a very obvious smoke and teleport play onto the centre of sight. As this smoke doesn't block a line of sight, it's very obvious what your play is, but you can use this to your advantage by either fake teleporting on the spot, or using the smoke as cover to teleport onto the boxes on the left side of sight. The second teleport is this one out of window into mid. Much like the one for A long, you'll be able to pop out of an unexpected angle for anyone holding mid from the B site. Just be careful your team is holding garage so you don't get flanked as you do this. Speaking of garage, there are a couple of decent plays you can use to catch the garage player off guard. Before going into garage, the default smoke is onto the window, forcing anyone playing there to either retreat giving you garage control, or forcing them to jump down into the garage itself. By using your blind in this position, you will catch anyone playing in the close corner, at the end of the connector to site, or leaving the window to C link. By using the sound of your blind as cover, you can use your teleport to jump to the back of garage and get an easy elimination. Make sure to place your smoke so it hangs over into the garage, as it's great cover as you teleport in case there's a player watching from C site. You can then use the smoke as cover to cross over to the other side of garage, or to jump up into the window to sneak into B or C site. A second garage play is to use a falling smoke to give you the drop on anyone playing in the connector to C site. You're vulnerable to window as you do this, but if the defender commonly plays between garage and site, this play will catch them off guard. As the smoke forms, teleport onto the right hand side box in the garage. As it falls, it will reveal any players in the connector or at the front of C site. Even if you do die, your team can still use this smoke as a line of sight blocker for window to help them follow up your push into garage. A final teleport for garage is across the sight line from window out into mid. By peeking the left hand side of the door instead of the right, you'll catch anyone holding the angle from window, as their crosshairs will be placed badly if they haven't seen you cross. Finally onto the C site. This first smoke lets you push safely up C long. Even if your team isn't planning to push C site, use this smoke at the start of the round to make it more difficult for the defensive players to predict your team's push, as the C player will have no idea if your whole team has walked up to the smoke and are about to push in, or if there's no one there at all. You can use a very similar smoke in A long to disguise your team's plans for the round. If you do plan on pushing C, you could then use your second smoke to block off the sightline from behind boxes down C long. As you'll place the smoke a few seconds after the first, your team will still be able to use it as cover after the first one dissipates. From the end of C long, you can teleport into the smoke on site and either push through it using it as cover from anyone playing tightly behind the boxes in sight, or you can double back on yourself and go to the default plant spot. There are a couple of variations on this play. You can instead teleport to the side of the platform, which gives you cover from the back of site, allowing you to hold the garage connector, or push around the platform to the back of site. The final variation is to teleport to the corner of the middle boxes. You can even place a smoke to cover the angle from wood and then teleport inside of the smoke. From here you can either push to the back of site, into garage, or just plant the spike. If you're planning to plant the spike, you don't want to be inside of the smoke though, as if an enemy pushes into the smoke, your team won't be able to see them and cover you. By mixing up these teleport plays, the defenders will find it impossible to predict where you are in sight, even if they hear the teleport go off. Finally, a few must-know teleports. If your team's taking control of the front of site, you can teleport to the side of the box at the back of site. Plant the bomb here, which can be covered from a teammate at the other end of C long. You can also surprise any defenders rotating in from C link, as they won't have seen you cross, meaning you'll have a massive advantage when you peek from the opposite side they're expecting. Once the spike's planted, you can use a falling smoke to cover your teleport onto the boxes by C link. Not only does this smoke make it hard for defenders to push into site, you'll catch anyone trying to retake the site off guard by playing in this unexpected spot. Just make sure you have a teammate holding garage, as your side's very exposed when you play here. If you need to reposition, you can either teleport back down onto wood, or onto the middle boxes in sight. The final spots are to catch an opera off guard at the start of the round by peeking the left side of C long rather than the right. You can use this repositioning technique in a post-plant situation too, if you're holding the planted spike from C long. If you're spotted, teleport to a different angle to give yourself an advantage in the next gunfight, and they'll never know which angle you're going to pop out at. I'll have more Omen guides coming out in the next few days, so if you want to see those, please subscribe. Thanks for watching!